Hey, we're Mug World Entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We made it to the end of the absolute horrendous garbage fest that was Star Trek Starfleet Academy. This is episode 10, and good God, is it the worst episode? Yeah, it's actually managed to be the worst episode, even worse than episode 5, which focused on Sam. Why? Because they stop in the middle of everything that's happening constantly to talk about Fifis. I'm not exaggerating. But the best part, now, with the preview, I said one thing, and that was the first officer, the Jem'Hadar Klingon idiot. If she's not on the ship and she's a hologram, that's a massive issue, being the fact that she's the first officer of the ship. And if she was on the ship, that's a massive issue, as the question is, well, where in the hell has she been? She's a hologram. Not in the terms of her species is actually a hologram. Like, her and Vance show up on the ship. They're holograms. So they confirm the first officer of the Athena has not been on board the Athena. In the first 3 minutes of this episode, they confirm every absolute disastrous decision you could think of. Where you go, wait, what? The first one, they confirm that the first officer has not been on board the ship. Number 2, this is incredibly important. They have a skeleton crew on board the ship, which was Tig Notaro, Ake, the doctor, and the cadets. That was it. That's all that was on this ship. Yeah, that's not a skeleton crew. A skeleton crew is still half a crew, but they had, 6 cadets and 3 officers. That's it. That's all that was on this ship. But then the biggest twist comes, and this is the moment where you're like, do you realize how nonsensical this actually makes this entire thing be? The minefield that was planted. We were trying to break down Federation space. What is the size of Federation space? Now, I put up a map. I did a video about this minefield stuff, and some people in the comments, yeah, you're technically right as well. The Federation space, at least in the 24th century, was approximately 8,000 light years across. So it even went into the beta quadrant. Now, as people were trying to point out, yeah, but the burn happened, so it shrunk. No, it lost planets and stuff, but it didn't actually shrink Federation space. But here's the kicker. Vance explains, remember, this is all within the first 3 minutes of this episode. First officer's not on board, she's a hologram. There's only 3 officers actually on board this ship, and this is the kicker. Vance confirms how much space has been imprisoned in the minefield, and he says, he doesn't say 8,000 light years. No. If only. It would still make it dumb, but made more sense. Instead, he says, I shit you not, 88,000 light years. Yeah. So, more than double the amount. 88,000 light years have been encompassed in the minefield. You got to be shitting me. And then the ships from Newsbracke's team show up immediately and start blowing up the ship, and then they beam on board and can take Ake and Caleb's mother, Tatiana Maslany's character, whatever the hell she's called, Mir. I'll just go with her last name, Mir. It's funny as well because the episode opens where it ended last week. I was going to say last year. Last week when she's in the med bay and looks up and there's Ake walking in. And what's the first thing she does? Tries and jumps up and attack Ake. It's like, wow, really living up to the whole thing of you should have been in prison. Just immediately jumps up to attack Ake and starts screaming all this crap of, I was told you not to trust them and blah 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 and we can't be here and yada yada yada. We find something else out. Now, time is something we've been talking about with this show. It's like, how much time has passed? When the incident happened on board the abandoned ship, the aftermath for that, we were told the following episode, a month had passed. And then the episode after that, we were told 2 months had passed. And then episode 9, we were told this was the end of their first year. Now remember, Caleb was found at the beginning of the year. Remember that? So he was told your mother escaped prison, which, again, why was she in prison when she was meant to be sent to a rehabilitation center? But he was told she escaped. We're told by Newsbracket in this episode that he helped her escape from where they are right now in this show 2 years ago. So it's like, wait, what? So Caleb has basically been in Starfleet for 2 years? What are you talking about? It's the time frame they keep making, and it's weird. On board the Athena, when Newsbracker shows up, he does serious damage to the ship, and they're leaking plasma coolant and all this crap. They're trying to fix it. They bugger off. Now, here's the thing. When they leave, like Newsbracker and stuff, they're given the order to destroy the ship. But they need to make it look like the ship was destroyed. So, what do? The Doctor, what does he have in his pocket? He has his mobile emitter in his pocket. What does he do? He hands it to Tig Notaro and says, be careful with this. It's almost 1,000 years old. She puts it on the console and it goes into the computer system, which puts him into the computer system. And they make it, as soon as he hands it to her and tells her to be careful and he put it in, you know exactly what's going to happen. So when you see the Athena get destroyed, you instantly go, it clearly isn't destroyed. It's clearly a holographic image. And sure enough it is. We go through a field and there it is, projecting all the pieces of the ship that's meant to be destroyed. So it's like, but it affects him. When the emitter comes back out, he's not working right because the ship obviously still took a bit of damage because it was still getting shot. So he starts talking, saying the glue in the shoe and stuff like that, and you're like, what? And while all this is happening, this is great as well, Jaden. They really didn't know what to do with this guy for the past couple of episodes. And if you watch As from Heel versus Babyface, he really has pointed out, and I'm pretty sure he's hit the nail on the head, that they only use him when they want something to do with gayness, because that's the only reason he gets involved with anything. Because anytime there's been no relationship stuff with being gay, he hasn't been used. They just keep sending him away. So they're all on the bridge. You have Tig Notaro there on the bridge, the Doctor who's now malfunctioning, Sam, Genesis, the Durham, asshole bully dude. What's her name? Tamira, the Betazoid bitch, and Caleb, right? And Jaden. I'm pretty sure I said Jaden. They're like, okay, Doctor's not working. You got Jaden. You're on medical. Take him to the med bay and try and fix him. Or actually, she doesn't even say to the med bay. She says, take him to the Chancellor's quarters and try and fix him. It's like, why would you take the Doctor to the captain's quarters to try and fix him? Don't know, but that's where they go. Tig Notaro goes off with Caleb to try and fix the warp core and leaves Genesis in charge. And even though Genesis is, before that, they're all given assigned posts. So Durham is piloting the ship. Betazoid bitch is doing, what was she doing? I think she was meant to be doing long-range sensors or something. But at the same time, so is Genesis meant to be on sensors? Something like, I can't quite remember. Either way, Durham is piloting the thing. Genesis gets told, hey, you're now in charge, while Tig Notaro and Caleb go off to try and fix the thing. She sits in the captain's chair for some reason. It's like, you're not going to get much done up there. And the first thing she does is she starts to go, oh wait, I think I need a pee. I'm not messing. That literally is what happens. That the bridge is on fire, there's sparks everywhere. She sits in the captain's chair, being all like, I'm about to take command, and goes, I need a pee. It's like, oh God. And they kept doing this. They kept dropping these weird little jokes here, there, and everywhere. So the episode is basically Caleb getting told by Tig Notaro that you really do belong here and all this crap and yada yada yada, while Newsbrack is putting Ake on trial while it's being televised. That's right, televised. Where, by the way, I thought they went back to the planet because it looked like they were back on that planet from UK or UK, whatever the fuck it was called in the last episode. They're not. All of the area they're on that look like that in the little trailer and stuff, that's actually the other half of the Athena. So they just destroyed half of it for reasons. And that's where they're holding the trial. And he's going to have Mir, whatever the hell her name is, Tatiana's Milani's character, be on his side to question things. So he comes up with the whole thing that, and this is also where it never made sense, that his planet was starving. They had no water, no supplies, no medical supplies, anything like that. They were a mining colony. This is what he says. That they used to sit there and watch the Federation shuttles fly through the sky, going to other planets. Number one, how did you see them? And number two, how did you know they were Federation ships? Seen as they were at warp, going past your planet in space, but okay. Then he says his father came up with a plan to try and take down one of the ships to get the supplies, and in doing so, the Federation responded by raining down hellfire, is what he says, onto the planet and killed everyone. So he's saying in retaliation, the Federation fired upon the planet to kill everyone and wipe them out. And he said specifically they rained down red fire. So you're like, okay. So Ake asks him eventually at some stage, like, hey, what exactly did you mine? And he says something, I can't remember what it was called, but it's like, okay. So she's kind of questioning. She also says, like, the Federation would never do what you're claiming they would do, and blah blah blah. So it's like, okay, Sam, and this is where the real Fifi start coming into this episode, where everything that's happening, they're all against time. So they've discovered, okay, the minefield is operating in such a way that if we can isolate one, the main one that would receive the signal, we can try and jam it. And they're like, yeah, but he'd probably set up for that. So they're working on how to jam the thing or render the minefield useless. They're also trying to fix the Doctor. They're doing this, they're doing that. Darren was to fly the ship, but he's to fly it slowly. They're trying to get the warp back. All this stuff. It's not battle ready or anything like that. It's no weapons, it's no shields. Its long range sensors aren't working. All of this bullshit. By the way, in one of the explosions, Betazoid bitch falls and hits what appears to be the side of her neck, and she damages her neural inhibitor thing. So it's they're like, Sam's freaking out. Like, Jaden hails the bridge and says, the Doctor, I still can't figure out what's wrong. You know, his system's working, but there's something off with him and we can't figure it out, and Sam is losing it down here. So they're like, hey, Genesis, you're her best friend, you gotta go down. So she leaves the bridge. So now there's only two people on the bridge, which is Darren and the Betazoid bitch. What's her name? Tamira, whatever the fuck her name is. I was just like, Jesus Christ, you're in the middle of a crisis and everybody keeps leaving the bridge. But she goes down and walks into the room and ends up having a heart-to-heart with Sam. And it's like, they're hugging it out. And I'm not exaggerating. They're having a heart-to-heart and exaggerating. They're like, Sam's like, I have my memories and I was just a mirror for you and blah, blah, blah. You didn't care about me. And Genesis is like, I always cared about you. And then they're all having a big heart-to-heart and a hug and shit. You're like, you realize you're in the fucking crisis here. The ship is half destroyed. Everything else, the Doctor's fucked. And you're standing there while your captain and a civilian have been kidnapped, hugging it out, talking about your goddamn feelings. And while they're doing that, Caleb is down in supposedly an engineering section with Tig Notaro, talking about their fucking feelings. It's like, sweet Jesus Christ, what is going on? And then they realise the Doctor's talking in a made-up language almost, and what he's telling them is basically a way to render the minds useless. It's like, oh, that was fucking coincidental. Not, hey, this is how you could fix me. No, he's telling them from the word go how to end the minds. It's like, well, why didn't you say that before, dude? Before you even got injured. As soon as you saw the minefield, why weren't you able to come up with this solution? Either way, so they're there. The whole trial is basically a trial of fucking feelings. That Newsbraca feels like he's been screwed over by the Federation, and Now Tatiana's Milani feels she's been screwed over and blah blah blah. It's like, good God, what is going on? He has, by the way, like, all these representatives of worlds outside the Federation all on board the ship. They're all there holographically, right? Oh yeah, there's something I have to go back to as well, which is fucking irritating. But they're all there, and it's like, wow, look at all these people from different worlds throughout the galaxy. And there's about 2 fucking aliens among them. Everyone else is a humanoid. It's like, wow. Really invested in the whole alien world thing there, didn't you? It's like, Jesus Christ. No, there's like 2 that are aliens. Everyone else is just a normal human. A lot of Asian women for some reason. It was like, what is going on? The transporter stuff. I spoke about this in the preview video, that, like, how did Noose Bracket just transport sitting in the captain's chair. This is really fucking annoying. And I mean, really annoying. What's the first thing that happens on board the Athena when the episode opens, when Ake's like, we could really use you on the bridge, saying it to Tatiana and Milani and shit. They instantly transport from the med bay up to the bridge. In episode 9, when she was shot and wounded and possibly dying, Caleb picked her up and him and the doctor carried her to the turbo lift to go down to this med bay. It's like, well, now we can see that the transporters were working. Why didn't you simply transport to the bridge? Then they say, we need all cadets to the bridge. And they all beam into the bridge. And then they're beaming here, there, and everywhere on board the ship. Except when they don't. Like, hey, Genesis, Sam could really need you down here. Hey, here's an idea. I'll take the fucking turbo lift and walk down instead of just beaming into the room like we've been doing the whole episode. Hey, Caleb and Tig Notaro, we need you to go and fix the engines. Guess what? We'll simply take the turbo lift and fucking walk down instead of taking the goddamn transporter like we've been doing through the whole goddamn episode. And this keeps happening. It's like, why all of a sudden was it 1 second it was very convenient to use the transporters, and the other time, no, it's not, we'll just walk everywhere. Now that time is off the essence, we'll walk. But when we weren't in that much of a rush, we'll beam in. It was so stupid and annoying. I forgot to mention, they do mention Discovery in this episode. Because it was the one thing I was saying is like, well, it's if a ship goes to warp through the minefield that it will set it off. Discovery doesn't use warp. But they give a bullshit answer. Ake says to Vance, like, can Discovery not just jump outside it? And he goes, oh no, the mines are using this particular frequency. The possibility of Discovery setting it off is high, so best not risk it. It's like, oh, that's a convenient answer. You know? Quick, come up with an idea so we can't involve Discovery. And by the end of the episode, when all the ships show up, which we'll get to, don't worry, Discovery wasn't among them either. It was like, oh, okay. But the trial is going on, so now Ake is being questioned. She's telling the truth, you know. She's been asked, like, did you give these type of orders? Yes, I did. Did you put her in prison for X amount of years? I did. Did you force her son? And he says, like, did you force Caleb into Starfleet? Like, she goes, like, we found him where he was about to go to prison. And he says, like, well, it was either prison or he better join you. Is that not the offer you gave him? She goes, it was. And stuff like that. So she's not, like, trying to dance around the idea of, oh no, he had his own choices. She does admit, like, yeah, we pretty much pressured him into joining Starfleet, but, you know, he pretty much came in kicking and screaming and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. And then Tatiana's Milani gets to start asking the questions, and she brings up and just starts screaming at her, basically talking about her fucking feelings and how she wants to dance on her grave and all this type of crap. And it's like, what in God's name is happening? Oh, Kurtzman rips off Kurtzman again. Do you remember in Star Trek 09 when they decided we need to get the Enterprise as close to Earth without, what was the character called? Nero? Was it Nero? I think it was Nero. In his mining ship without being detected. So what did they do? They went, hey, we can drop out a warp in the atmosphere of Saturn, I believe it was, and they won't detect us. They do the exact same thing in this. They're like, hey, there's a moon in this area close to where these ships are. we can drop out of warp in that atmosphere. They even give you the same type of shot. I'll have it in here somewhere. In fact, you'll get to see where the ship drops out of warp in the atmosphere and then rises above the cloud. They do the exact same fucking thing. It's like, you just ripped yourself off again. Great job, Alex Kurtzman, you dickhead. So, but they've no shields, they've no sensors, except short-range sensors, even though they said we've lost sensors, all this type of shit. And yet they were still able to go to warp, which you're not told they actually managed to fix. They drop out of places where they shouldn't know where they are and stuff. And it's just like, what is happening? So, by the end of the trial, Ake says, hey, can I ask you some questions? And they're like, fine. And she starts talking bullshit to Tatiana Maslany, kind of saying, yeah, Caleb found himself at Starfleet, yada, 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 and really pushes her to say, like, you know, we held up our promises to him, blah, blah, blah. And Tatiana Maslany goes, guilty. And then they're like, oh my god, yay! You know, Newsbreaker has a meltdown. Yay, she's guilty. You heard it here first, blah, blah, blah. While all this is happening, now the Athena are the saucer of it, because they've got, by the way, when we see the other half of the Athena, which is where the trial is happening, Newsbreaker has all of his ships around it. They don't just have tractor beams attached to it, they actually have cables attached to the ship as well. It's like, why do you need what is essentially towing cables and stuff when you've tractor beams? I couldn't figure it out. By the way, all of their ships are horrendous. They're all just these shapes. They really are. They're just shapes. So were the Federation ships. But he's like, yeah, you know, now it's time for sentencing. What do we sentence her with? Caleb finds out, hey, Tamara, Tamuna, whatever the fuck your name is, your inhibitor isn't working. I don't think you need that. We need to know exactly where Newsbreaker is. So here's the deal. Why don't you take that thing off and we'll rip off Star Trek Nemesis, where Troy had to use her senses to discover where Shinzon was on the scimitar. Remember that? Remember when they were like, we need you to go into his mind? Same thing here. So we get Fifi's again. So in the middle of a crisis, Sam is now working on a program to try and render the mines useless. Damar, whatever, is trying to pilot the ship, but he needs the exact location before they can go. All of this crap is happening. Caleb decides to turn around and go into the mine. Do you remember what they did after they boned, where all of a sudden they were in the mine with the flowers? They did the same thing here and start speaking about Fifi's. Again, I'm not lying. He's literally, I'm sorry I never listened and did this and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, me too, blah, blah, blah. It's like, right, we're in the middle of a crisis here. Why are you talking about feelings? And he basically tells her, like, hey, I think your abilities are a gift, not a curse, and blah, blah, blah. And you definitely need to use it. Do you remember how in episode 6, she ripped out her neural inhibitor? Like, there was big wires out of it and everything. She just, not this one, she just like off it neck. It's just like it's magnetized on her neck this time all of a sudden. It's like, okay, that's convenient. But she takes it off and the two of them hold hands on the bridge, and sure enough she discovers where they are. So we never hear the plan, but Caleb apparently leaves to go and distract Newsbreaker in a shuttle. So they pick up the shuttle, they bring Caleb in. Caleb goes, can I talk? And Newsbreaker is about to tell him, like, no, the trial is over and blah, blah, blah. And he leans over to him and goes, like, really? You've just been here talking about, you know, free will and the freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. And you're not going to let me speak to the galaxy? And Bracker's like, oh, well played. So he does. And Caleb basically starts saying to his man, like, I've never laughed as much as I have in the past few years with these people. Starfleet was great to me, and I really tried to push them away. Just giving a gobbledygook, more feelings crap. And Newsbreaker's like, yeah, well, fucking tough. Pulls out the thing. He's going to set off the mines after Nala Ake says, hey, Caleb, what was one of your classes in the academy? And it was science and all this type of crap. So she brings up the substance that Newsbreaker's family mined. And he's like, yeah, it's such and such. And she goes, how like useful? He goes, it's an energy source, but but it's very volatile, that it's easily combustible and all this type of shit. And it goes on, and she basically explains what color is Federation fire, like torpedoes and stuff. And he gives an answer. I was expecting to hear orange or something. No, he says it's one of two. It's for the past fucking 100 years or something. He says it's blue and green. So Nala Ake says, "Oh, that's funny. Didn't you say specifically it was red hellfire that was rained down?" And says, "Your father tried to make this stuff into a weapon and fucking blew yourselves up. So he accidentally killed himself, and that Newsbracker has basically been a child this entire time that never grew up." And says to everyone, "Do you really want to be under the leadership of a child? You know, a grown-ass man who's still a child, who's never grown up." And they all leave, and the fucking, he goes, "Yes, can't leave." And goes, "It ends this way." And he tries to detonate the mines, but of course they don't, because they've now been rendered safe and useless thanks to Sam. And all of a sudden, now here's the problem. The Athena coming to where Newsbracket is, they specifically says it will take a half hour. And the reason I know it's exactly that I didn't mishear is because Sam says, "I will need every minute of that half hour to get this program right for the minefield." Even though as soon as they go to warp, they immediately drop out of warp in the atmosphere of this gas giant thing. Which was like, was that the full half hour? Did we just skip, or did it literally take you a couple of seconds to go to this place? Either way, they said a half hour, right? And that was from their location. Not even where Starfleet is. Their location. The second the minefield was rendered useless, and I mean the second, every Federation starship shows up to Newsbracker's ship. It's like, we were just told about 20 minutes ago in this episode that it would take a half hour from where the Athena was to get here. How did every fucking Starfleet ship show up in a nanosecond from when the minefield was brought down? So they arrest Newsbracket. Tatiana Mazzani punches him. He goes, "Was that a punch?" And then spits out one of his toots. Then Ake walks up and punches him as well. And that's the end of him. And then we're back on to the Athena, and everything's happy-go-lucky again. And it's the end of their year, and they're at Beta Z, or Beta Z, I should say. And it's about to be the summertime and all this garbage, and they're all friends, and he's gonna go on summer holidays on Earth with his mammy and all this shit. And it was just like, what in the name of Christ? And then it ends in the most bizarrest way. Now, they didn't do the standard intro this episode, you know? They did. It was just when the ship was getting destroyed, supposedly, but it was the holographic image. They just kind of gave you the title card and a couple of the names, like directed and executive produced and stuff. But they didn't do the normal intro. So the end, they start showing you photographs of the cast as children, not as their species or as characters. Even though it's giving you the character information, but at the very bottom, it gives the actor's name. It's photos of the actual actors as kids. So you're like, what is this? What is going on here? So, like, you're expecting, you know, to see little child Klingon Gaiden, and instead you're just seeing the actual actor as a kid. You're like, wait, what? It was so strange why they ended it like that. I couldn't figure that out at all. So apparently they finished their first official year at the Academy, even though we've been told in this episode it was roughly 2 years, which I don't know, unless they said she escaped a year before, but that also wouldn't really make much. Either way, 2 years have passed since the fucking start of the show to now, apparently. Sam is now, she keeps saying she's a different Sam, and yet every now and again she keeps doing stupid Sam shit. Like when she deactivated the minefield, she starts running around the bridge screaming, and Tignatar's sitting in the captain's chair, and she jumps in her lap while screaming. And it's like, what? Tignatar spent the whole episode just like trying to do this. She's dropping wisdom but doing it through a sarcastic joke. It's like, that's just irritating. The one thing, there's one line in it that you like, I agree 100% with that line, is when Newsbracket boards the ship, Tignataro says something and he flat out goes, I don't like you. He goes, everyone else I'm fine with, I don't like you. And it's like, welcome to the club, dude. So, the Doctor is now fine. Sam is still fucking Sam. The cadets are all friends again and happy to be there. Everything's happy, everything's great. The Federation's back at full strength, apparently. It was so fucking disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. Transporters work at one stage and then we'll walk everywhere the next. We don't have sensors, but we have sensors at one stage. We don't have warp, but now we have warp, but we didn't quite tell you we fixed it. It was like, what in the name of Christ is going on? And let's keep stopping and getting through everything by talking about our feelings. It was like the worst gobbledygook garbage ever. But thank fuck it's over for now. Now we have Strange New Worlds Season 4 to come later this year. We possibly, and at this stage it is still a high probability that Season 2 of this garbage fest drops this year. I doubt it. I have a feeling it'll probably drop this time next year. We'll wait and see. But as of now, for Season 1 of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, all 10 episodes is over. By the way, this episode was 1 hour and 10 minutes fucking long. It's finished. We made it to the end. So with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, and hit that hype button. All that good stuff. Check out memberships if you're interested. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.